I recently had a week off for vacation and I went to Cape Breton, which is so beautiful. Anyways, in the midst of my travels, I stopped at one point to fill gas, and there I was pumping gas, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this sign, and it said, free hot drink with the purchase of $25 worth of gas. And I just kind of filed it away and continued pumping gas and was pondering, the deeper questions in life, as I normally do. But then it registered. Wait a minute, I could get a free drink. And then I just presumed this probably doesn't apply to me. Anytime something says free, my baser, cynical instincts kicked in. And I thought, maybe this is like a special promotion only for the locals, and I'm far from home. Or perhaps, there's some fine print that says offer expires May 31st, and they just forgot to update the sign. Or I thought, maybe there's a catch. You have to have 17 million points and spend $25 in gas in order to take advantage of this offer. So for whatever reason, I assumed this doesn't apply to me. And so I finished pumping gas, and I'd already paid at the pump with my credit card. I was about to drive off, and I paused. And I thought, you know what? I'm a little thirsty, and I could use a boost. What if? And so, I didn't want to be that guy who always waltzes in looking for all the free stuff, but I overcame my fear of embarrassment, and I donned my mask, and I walked in, and I waited sheepishly in line for the cashier. And when it was my turn, I said, I couldn't help but notice the sign outside about the free drink, and I just thought, I wonder, maybe is there a chance that, and she cut me off. There was no hesitation, there was no shame. She just said, what size do you want? And I was flabbergasted. This offer applies to me. And anyways, I walked out of there that day with a warm cup of hot cocoa. Now, some people call that hot chocolate, but I was delighted to see that the offer did apply to me. Can you think of an example or situations in your life where you're asking yourself the question, does this apply to me? Maybe it's some kind of a free promotion. You get a flyer in the mail, and right away, that inner skeptic is wondering, what's the catch here? Does this really apply? Or maybe you overhear a couple friends, they're chatting about going to the movies. Remember when we used to do that? And they're like, yeah, we might go see this show, and they kind of notice that you're in earshot, and they say, would you like to come with us to the movies? And you're like, that invite, it doesn't really apply to me. And you feel this awkwardness because it's just a pity invite. Or maybe when it comes to rules, does that really apply to me? How about speeding? Does that really apply to me all of the time? Or what about all of the rules and protocols we're supposed to follow to reduce the risk of COVID-19? Wearing masks, social distancing. We all know of famous people who think the rules don't apply to them. And maybe yourself, you've wrestled with, or you've been tempted at times to say, you know what, I'm healthy, I'm pretty sure I don't have COVID-19, I'm low risk. The rules probably don't apply to me in this situation. And believe me, I understand when it comes to rules in general, I get that feeling, that wrestling, that inner rebellious spirit. But the truth is this: there are some things in life that are meant to be universal, meaning they apply to everyone. Now, in our gospel today, we have another situation of I'm not sure if this applies to me, and it's concerning taxes. Now, today, with our wonderful understanding of how the world works, we all know, and finish this sentence for me, there are a couple things that are certain in life: death and Taxes. That's right. I know you got it at home. Death and taxes. But back in ancient Israel, there were some folks who were asking the question, do these taxes really apply to me? So here's the situation. You got these two groups, the Pharisees and the Herodians, who normally, under normal circumstances, they don't get along very well. The Pharisees, on the one hand, they were Jewish purists. And so they were totally opposed to the Roman rule, and just the thought of taxation, it reminded them that they were an oppressed people. Meanwhile, the Herodians, they believed in the dynasty of King Herod and his successors, who were actually kind of like a puppet regime. They were set up by the Romans. And so, by extension, the Herodians, they were supportive of the emperor and in favor of taxes. So as the situation unfolds, the Pharisees, they make sure the Herodians are nearby so they can overhear this conversation, and they start waxing eloquently. You know, Jesus, we know that you are so wise and impartial. And then they ask the question, should we pay taxes to the emperor or not? Because underlying that is this belief, we think that these taxes shouldn't apply to us. Now, it's a trap. Because no matter what Jesus says, one of the groups is going to be frustrated. If he says, yeah, you should pay the taxes, the Pharisees would be like, well, obviously he's not the real Messiah, because the Messiah came to set us free from Roman oppression. The Herodians, on the other hand, if Jesus says, stop paying the taxes, the Herodians would report him to the Romans for inciting a revolt. So it's a catch-22. But as usual, Jesus outsmarts these guys, and he raises the level of the discussion. He asks, whose image is imprinted on the coin? Caesar. To which he responds, give therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Mic drop. End of conversation. You see, they knew their scriptures, and they would have immediately thought back to the beginning of the Torah, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. This silver coin, it was imprinted with the image of Caesar, but our human souls have been imprinted with the image of God. And Jesus is reminding them, you were made in God's image. You belong to Him. Now, some of you might be listening to this and you're thinking, I'm not sure if this applies to me. Because, you know what? I've committed some sins. If you knew my past, you'd realize this probably doesn't apply to me. Or maybe because I'm new. Or perhaps I haven't had, one of those super spiritual experiences. So I'm not so sure that this applies to me. Let me be perfectly clear. This applies to you. You were made in God's image and likeness. The real question is not, do the taxes apply to me? It's, does God's image apply to me? And the answer is a resounding yes. Yes, you have been imprinted with the image of God. Now we're starting this 6-week preaching series called Set Apart. And it's about the universal call to holiness. Now in Hebrew is one of the languages that was used to write the Old Testament. And in Hebrew, the word for holiness literally means set apart. When we look at all of creation, and I was just in Cape Breton, taking in so much beauty, the mountains, the oceans, the trees changing color, animals. I saw eagles. I saw a coyote even. And then right here in Clayton Park, I'm seeing deer all the time. When we look at all of creation, humans have a special place. We are set apart. We're the only creature specifically made in the image and likeness of God, made for union with God. I remember when I was a teenager, somebody said, my job is to get to heaven and to bring as many people with me as possible. And I was like, right on. I can get behind that. It just speaks to these two fundamental realities, our universal call to holiness and our universal call to mission. Now here at St. Benedict, we talk quite a bit about mission because it's important, and we want to be a parish that is hyper-focused on mission. And we need to be made up of a people who are embracing our call to holiness. We need to be set apart for God. And again, if you're wondering, you know what, does this message really apply to me? Let me spell it out for you. It is a universal call to holiness. Yes, I'm talking to you. You have a call to become holy. And I think for so many of us, we're like, you know what, holiness seems, it's unattainable. It's this ideal I can never live up to. I think of a statue, made of plaster with, the saint with the praying hands, looking all holy. Or I think of, this is only for the super elites. Or, maybe I'll become holy, but later in life. Or this is just something for the professionals, the priests and the nuns. They're the ones who are supposed to become holy. This message is for all of us. And it's for right now. God is calling us to be holy. And if God's asking for it, it means holiness is possible. I want to get a little technical just for a moment. Maybe this distinction will help. There are at least two different kinds of holiness. What we call objective or ontological holiness and subjective or moral holiness. Now, the latter maybe is easier to understand. Moral, like our choices, when we choose good things that move us towards God, we grow in holiness. But that first category, ontology is the study of being. What is existence? And insofar as you exist, you are holy. Because you've been made in the image of a God who is holy. That's His being. That's His existence. Whereas the subjective holiness, that's a lifelong process. And day by day, we can grow in holiness by making good choices and developing virtue. So I'll give you a simple example. Father Alex, we know Father Alex is objectively holy. Even if there's a little bit of room for growth in the subjective holiness department, right? He will continue to increase for the rest of his life, but right now, today, we know he's been imprinted with the image of this God who is holy. This has been hardwired into our spiritual DNA. You have a universal call for holiness. As we start this series, I wanted to present the dream of what's possible, that objectively, we are holy. We bear this imprint of God. But that's not enough to reach heaven. We gotta choose to live it out. To become a saint, we gotta embrace this call to holiness. And over the next few weeks, we're gonna be talking about how to put this into practice. Day by day, week by week, how to grow in holiness. But the starting point is this: to embrace our call to holiness. Pope John Paul II, once, he asked this great question in reference to adults who are being baptized. They're referred to as catechumens. He said this: to ask catechumens, do you wish to receive baptism, means at the same time to ask them, do you wish to become holy? Anybody baptized? I suspect many of you are. Maybe not everybody, and that's okay. But I'm going to ask the question to all of you. Do you wish to become holy? Come on. Who wants to become holy? Who wants to become a saint? Who wants to go to heaven? Who wants to be with God forever? Well, let me tell you, there's only one way to get there, and it's to become holy. And I want to offer this question for your reflection this week, to take to prayer, to spend some time with. Do I wish to become holy? Back at that gas station, when I saw the free drink, the sign for the free hot drink, I remember thinking, okay, this offer, it's available, but I still have to wrestle with the question, does it apply to me? I could have just driven away and not received the gift. But there was this shift that happened inside of my heart when I started to ponder, what if it could be true? What if this really does apply to me? And then I had to follow that up with some concrete steps to actually get that warm cup of cocoa. Well, it all starts with the shift. Could it be that you are in fact called to holiness? That this applies to you? St. Francis de Sales, a famous saint from the 17th century, said this: be who you are and be that well. Be who you are and be that well. And who you are is a son or a daughter imprinted with the image of God, who is holy.